Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. It's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for a new episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone. And today's video is a video that I meant to do a month ago. And I feel really bad for it taking so long for me to do this. I was tagged in a video back on October 23rd, so we're going back over a month. But with my work schedule and everything, I just didn't have a chance to get to this one. And I kept forgetting about it and getting distracted. So my apologies to Nathan, who runs Rotting Llama Productions. So this was a horror movie tag. He tagged me in this video along with 4 other YouTubers, asking us a series of 9 questions. And I'm going to go through those questions now and give my honest answers. So Nathan, sorry again for this taking so long. I hope you enjoy my video and my response to your tag. And I want to thank you for tagging me and watching the content that I've been putting out. It really means a lot to me, and you have an awesome channel as well. And I will put a link to Rotting Llama Productions down below so everybody else can check out the amazing content that Nathan is putting out. So question number 1, first horror movie I remember watching. So the first horror movie I ever remember watching was Salem's Lot. And I've talked about Salem's Lot ad nauseum on this channel, but I did watch a lot of horror films before that. I remember watching Creature Features with John Stanley, but I can't remember specifics about a lot of those movies. The first movie I ever truly remember watching that scared me to the core was Salem's Lot, and I was 5 years old. It was in November of 1979. It was aired. It was a 2-part miniseries. I only watched part 2. It aired. They aired a week apart. So the first part was on November 17th, and the second part was on November 24th of 1979. 5 years old, and my grandmother was the one that actually told my mom and I to watch it. And she had watched part 1, and it had scared her. And I really liked monsters, so that's why I watched it. And that movie terrified me to the core, and it was the first time I ever remember truly being terrified by something. And I still remember sleeping that night and having nightmares about the scene in the film where Barlow and the people of the town of Salem's Lot are in this root cellar in the basement of the Marston house. And I still remember the nightmare that I was trapped in there with them. So yeah, Salem's Lot is just still to me one of the scariest films I've ever seen, and always will be, even though it's been almost 40 years since it came out, and I've seen it probably 200 times. Question number 2, favorite horror movie. Again, Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot will always be my favorite horror movie. Despite the fact that I love many horror films, Salem's Lot was the one that truly terrified me. And for the longest time, I didn't want to watch anything that was scary. And then as I got older, I was curious and revisited that film, and I've never looked back, and I've been a fan of it ever since. Question number 3, horror genre, which scares me the most. There are many different types of horror films that get to my core, but I think the ones that truly terrify me are the ones where an individual is away from their surroundings, if they're lost, if they're trapped, if they are traveling from place to place. So movies like The Blair Witch Project, where they are lost in the woods, terrifies me. Movies like Jeepers Creepers 1, where Trish and Derry are traveling between college and home, and they get stalked by the creeper. The Strangers really terrifies me. Joyride is another movie that really scares me because it's something where you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're in the elements. You don't have a safe place to go. And there's something that's after you, or someone that's after you. And you are just trying to get away from that person to stay alive. Those types of films really scare me. I don't know how you would categorize them, but they scare me the most. I think because someone is after you, a faceless person, somebody that there's no motive. They just want to go after you, and they want to hurt you or attack you or something like that. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's the best I can think of, because that is one of my fears. So those are the types of films that scare me in the horror genre. Last horror film that really scared me. I think Sinister is probably the last film that just really chilled me. That film is bleak from frame one, and it doesn't let up. There is just so much terror in that film, just with the home movie footage, the way that Bagul is kind of slowly introduced, the scene where Ethan Hawke is looking out the window into the yard and he has the photo, the picture that he took, the scan that he took of the family that's being hung at the beginning of the film, and he's holding it up to the same yard, matching it with the outside yard, and he pulls the photo down and Bagul is standing right there. That, the scene where Bagul is in the pool, there's just so many images in that film that just really, really get to me. And I think there's been some terrific horror films that have come out in the last couple of years, but that film just gets me. And that film terrifies me. I absolutely love it, but it's, yeah, one of the scariest films I've ever seen. I think my ultimate scream queen, which is the next question, who is my ultimate scream queen? I think it will have to go to Jamie Lee Curtis, who played Laurie Strode in the Halloween franchise. A concept that I would like to see in horror is question number 6. I would love to see something, and it's kind of crazy, but it's something I used to think about when I was a kid, is if like all of the monsters that I love, like Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, Leatherface, if they all were in the same movie. I think that would be great. Like this ultimate badass horror team up. Where all of these monsters were in the same film. I think that would just be fantastic. I think a lot of people would like that, but that's something I used to draw pictures of when I was a kid, that all of these monsters were together, and I just thought that would be a tremendous, it'd be like Freddy versus Jason on steroids, to have all these characters together in one movie. My favorite on-screen kill, that is like a really tough one. I think my favorite on-screen kill in a film has to be Marion Crane in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. What the shower scene represents and what it's, what it did to people in 1960, that was shocking. No one had ever seen anything like that, and the way that it was cut together. And Bernard Herrmann's music in that scene, it just, so much of that, and you never see the knife penetrate Marion Crane's body, but it's just, it's such a violating, horrific scene, especially with a character that you've grown to sort of, you've grown attached to this character over the first 40 minutes of the film, and then to have her cut down like that so shockingly, really takes you aback. And even nowadays when I watch that scene is still shocking and brutal and terrifying and heartbreaking. There's so many emotions that are evoked when you watch the shower scene in Psycho, and it's so well done, and the fact that it's black and white just makes it that much more impactful. I just absolutely love that scene, and I still think that scene holds up so well today and is one of the greatest and most terrifying horror kill scenes ever in a film. My favorite horror franchise will always be Friday the 13th. I love every one of them. Even Jason Goes to Hell, which is my least favorite, but I love that entire franchise. Jason Voorhees will always be my favorite horror icon. I just love that series. I grew up on it. It was that taboo movie series that you couldn't watch when I was little. I think I was about 5 when the first one came out, 5 or 6 when the first Friday the 13th came out, and I was so interested in those films. I remember my dad telling me, oh, someone gets their head cut off in this film, and I just wanted to see that. So, I really just got into those films pretty early in life, and it stuck with me all through high school and in my 20s and 30s, and I absolutely love that series, and it means so much more to me now than it did when I was a kid. It's just a real time capsule for me for where I was in my life when those were released. Favorite horror director? My favorite horror director will always be John Carpenter. I absolutely love him. I think he is such a master filmmaker. And I think he was so underappreciated when he was in his heyday, when he was putting films out. With the exception of Halloween, which I know initially wasn't getting the critical praise it eventually did get. But for films like The Fog and The Thing, which was a critical and financial flop, if you can believe that. But even like Big Trouble in Little China, Prince of Darkness, In the Mouth of Madness. I even like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which a lot of people do not like. But he's just an amazing, amazing director. And Christine, one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. I love these films. And I'm so glad that they're getting a second life with today's generation, who's really just looking at John Carpenter's work and realizing what an impact it had, whether people wanted to admit it or not when they were first premiering these films. He is just an amazing director, amazing sense of music and style and tone. He owns, and he will always be my favorite horror film director. So that is it. So Nathan, I hope you enjoyed my answers to your questions. I again want to apologize for this taking so long to get released. It was not my intention to put this out almost a month and a half after you initially tagged me. And I'm curious what other people think about my answers. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Would love to hear from everyone. And also, please check out Nathan's channel, Rotting Llama Productions. Again, link down below. Support Nathan. He has amazing content, and he's a good guy. And I want to see him get some more subscribers. And as always, thanks so much for watching Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Stay scared as always. Peace.